Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Are you ready to pop your cork? In the left corner at 6'4", 242 pounds, with a record of 45-0, the undisputed.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Will.
Hey, how many bottles of wine have you had?
Well, Will, it's not the wine. I'm just so excited about the podcast.
Yeah, I am too. But this is not a boxing match. This is We Know Texas Vino.
Salute.
Guys, I really enjoyed talking with y'all. Now, Blake, you know what? We've heard from you quite a bit, Dan.
Yeah.
Blake, you haven't really talked very much on here. You poured wine and kind of chatted here and there.
Yeah.
What is your thoughts on this whole vineyard and winemaking stuff?
I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. There's a lot of, whenever I was in high school, I really did not know what I wanted to do. And then my senior year, I was working a little bit more in the vineyard, and I really just started falling in love with it. And then definitely when he was allowing me to be more on the wine side, that's when I really fell in love with it. And then saw his passion for it. I felt like I need to have a passion for that. And after these, because I went to Texas Tech viticulture program doing enology and viticulture, and COVID hit. And so all my classes went online, all my labs, right whenever I was getting into my labs, it was all online. And I was like, I'm not going to do my labs online. This is,
right.
How are you going to learn this way?
You can't.
And so there was a point in my life where I was like, I think I'm just going to go home. So I came home, and he ended up having to fire a bunch of the workers that he had there at the time. And he's like, need your help. Kind of be perfect if you were able to stay for a little bit. And so I ended up just staying home, putting in a lot of hours. And then it just started working out, being like, all right, maybe I don't go back to school. Maybe this is it. And then found out that I'm learning a lot more here. And after these 3 years that I've been here, it's just, my love for it is just, now I actually care about it. I get stressed out whenever I'm out in the vines. All of a sudden I see like something's wrong with one of the vines. Just one vine.
Right.
I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, it's funny because he and I were talking about it the other day. He was getting a little bit stressed about because he's getting to the point now where he can see what needs to be done and what needs to be completed still. Where before in year one and year two, it's just a job. Right. Like you really don't get it.
Slave away.
Yeah.
He's paying me, but
I could be out partying right now.
Exactly.
But now when he goes through the vineyard, he sees some of the things I would see when you're like, oh wow, that needs to be.
We need to get to this.
We got to get this fixed because like in 2 weeks this is going to happen.
Right.
There's a lot of that stuff that just constantly comes up, but yeah, I just love it.
It's awesome.
And I feel blessed that I'm able to have basically, since he's still doing IT, kind of supporting the whole ordeal still, I feel like I'm blessed to have an opportunity to be able to work and be able to make some decisions.
Nice.
So he's great in being able to, like, if I have an idea and I want to try it out, he's like, all right, go try it out. Go try to do it. And I'll end up trying to do it and it not working out because he already did it and he knew it wasn't going to work out. And I'll be like, all right. So that was a learning lesson right there. But there's a lot of stuff like that.
I can see that conversation now. Hey, Dad, I want to do this. Okay, go ahead and go do it. And he's sitting there and said, I've already done that before. You're going to fail.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, you do have to. I have learned that I do have to let him try things that even I know I've tried before because really that's for me. And I know he probably learns a lot the same way. It's like you got to do it and fail at it,
right? And
then it sticks.
That whole saying.
But hearing it or reading about it, it's way different than doing it and seeing the results.
Here's the deal. He may actually do it something different than you did and actually may succeed in it. And you're like, oh, I never thought about it that way.
Yep.
You're not. It's been like that all week, okay? You and I have this analytical mind that we think one way, and if it doesn't go that way, we don't go any other direction. But sometimes when someone comes in at a different direction, at that point, right, they see it in a whole different way that we normally would have seen it.
Yeah, that's where it comes back to that chess game where it's like you have so many decisions that you can make and go so many different ways that it can go.
Well, and I've always told him in the vineyard, I said, when you're doing something and it's taking a while, always be thinking of a different way you could do it.
Right.
Don't ever stop trying to innovate or come up with a better way of doing it because there's probably a better way of doing it that's more efficient.
Right. I mean, the wheel's already been invented, but make it a better wheel.
Yeah. Right.
The wheel started as a stone and now look at it, make it a better will.
Yep.
So, gentlemen, is there anything else that you want to talk about that I have not hit on?
Wines, if you want to.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about the vineyard. We haven't even talked about any of the wines.
Okay, well, tell us about your wines. I mean, we have all the time in the world for you.
All right, well, let's go get. I'll be right back. You can keep talking.
I'm guessing he's probably going to grab MTR.
Yeah,
cab as well. Yeah, so a lot of our stuff are not blends.
Yeah, we talked about the Touriga.
That's the Touriga.
Yeah, that's Touriga National. Which, holy crap.
Yeah, I love that one. I've learned to love it. I really like bold red wines. Very oaky, long age. You can see the ages on that. I see you're looking at the list right now.
Well, yeah, I do have to ask a question here because I want to make sure I'm reading this number correctly. Your MTR 2015, does that say $225 a bottle?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want to make sure. I didn't want to make sure it says 225 calories.
Right? No, thankfully mine doesn't have that many calories on it. Almost none. But
we actually did an episode recently where we talked about calories.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, and that became a really hot topic really, really fast.
Depends on how much sugar you have in your wine. Since we don't have any sugars and all our stuff is completely fermented out.
Well, actually, from what I was told, and it's actually by Cornet Winery, they said that your calories has been defined by how much heat it creates to burn to start heating water and boil it.
Oh.
Yeah, so you got alcohol in here, so alcohol burns. Mm-hmm. So you light it up, and depending on what the boiling point is, that's where you figure out how much calories in there. I did not know that.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
What's that?
Calories. Talk about calories in wines.
Yeah, so all of our wines are completely fermented all the way through, so there's not going to be.
So I do primary and secondary fermentation on everything, whites and reds.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's going to go through malic fermentation, and it's going to go to.
And that's because I try not to use a whole lot of sulfites, so I'd rather everything be completely dry.
Right.
And we don't filter. I don't filter anything except for that one Chardonnay, and I do that only for the purpose of showing the consumer what the filtered versus unfiltered.
Yeah, and now I don't know if you saw the difference in the filtered, but I mean I definitely saw it. I mean because I've done this before.
Yeah, you're seeing the color.
Yeah, the color was definitely different, and I know that the first time I actually got a filtered wine over at RK, we were filtering his Roussanne. Yeah, and man, that thing was dark yellow, and by the time we got through filtering it, we filtered it through 30-1 micron filters. Mm-hmm. And man, it was such a beautiful golden color. Afterwards. But man, I felt bad for those filters, man. Those things were like,
So the reason I don't do it is because if you do the reading on the three processes, right? Mm-hmm. There's your fining, filtering, and cold stabilization. Mm-hmm. All three of them will talk about reduction in flavors.
Right.
And so we do such small production that we'd rather it's just the two of us. If somebody screws it up, it's here. Right. If someone doesn't clean something, so I always tell him, I was like, did you clean that? And he'll say yes. And I say, well, go clean it again. And when you think that's clean it a third time. And, when we bottle, we'll typically go get brand new food grade tubing and we'll go straight from the barrel right to the bottle.
Nice.
And bypass all the, anytime you have all that equipment involved, that's when you start introducing risk.
Yep.
And so for that reason, I don't do it. Even on the whites and rosés, like our barrels will go in and we do not move them from the day they go in there, they stay.
Right. That's how we were able to get that unfiltered Chardonnay. It was still so clear. The only way that you could really tell is the color. But
interesting. I tell you what, so the first time I really came across a really filtered wine. So over here in the hill country in West Texas, you don't hear about it as much. But over around East Texas is Blanc de Bois. Blanc de Bois grows great out there because it's Pierce disease resistant. So my first time I got to experience that was at a winery called Terra Winery. And it was Mother's Day. And they were serving their water in wine glasses as well. And I'm OCD about where my water is. My water always sits on my right-hand side when it's on the table. So I ordered me a glass of the Blanc de Bois because I've never had it before. And I'm not paying attention. And they set it down, and I'm sitting here talking to my stepdad. And I reached over because I'm thinking I've already reset it. And I reached and grabbed that glass, and I went to drink it. And I was like, man, this is the greatest water I've ever drank. And when the waitress came back over, I said, "What kind of water is this?" And she goes, "Oh, that's not water. That's Blanc de Bois." And they had filtered it so much that it was almost crystal clear to the water. But it was so good. I actually got a bottle that's still at the house. I refused to open it because I'm afraid that if I open it, I'll never get another one.
Yeah, that's always a fear.
Yeah, when you find one that you like and you open it and you're like, okay, I'm just going to take a sip. We're going to be okay. But
yeah,
it never happens. I do probably need to give me one of those Corbins.
Yeah, they're nice. Yeah, it's needed sometimes because we don't drink as much as some people might think, but
yeah,
we do like trying wines, and so we do. But we want to keep it as well, so we'll be able to stick it back in our lab.
Oh yeah,
or our library.
So this is the first one that I'm pouring you is Ruby Cabernet. The second one I'm pouring you is also Ruby Cabernet.
Oh.
Okay, so
I'll get you another.
What's the difference between Cabernet and
Ruby Cabernet is a hybridized grape or crossbred between Carignan and Cabernet Sauvignon.
Oh.
So you notice on the nose you get the pyrazines that are very typical of the green characters, the methoxypyrazine that is very prominent in Cab Sauvs, right? And so that's what so on the Ruby Cab, that's what you're picking up. You're picking up the Cabernet Sauvignon.
Sorry, I've had to kind of scratch my nostrils a little bit because, it smells a little bit like also fresh ground pepper. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what it smells like to me.
Yep.
I love it.
So this was native yeast fermented or spontaneous fermented with no sulfites. That's no sulfites added to that and unfiltered. And it only spent 13 months in a neutral barrel.
No acid additions. We do very minimal intervention. So a lot of our wines are going to be basically just what the fruit is.
So the pH on that is 4.2. So look at the color on it. You can't even, it's black. So Ruby Cabernet is have you ever heard of Mega Purple?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan.
Made with Ruby Cab skins.
Really?
Yes.
I'm not a fan of Mega Red.
Yeah. No. Mega Purple is.
Mega Purple, sorry.
But Mega Purple is primarily made with Ruby Cab skins.
Yeah, we'll use it to color up some of our other wines. But we'll put only like
Ruby Cabs. We'll actually use the Ruby Cab skins.
And we use like this year on one of our, it was on Merlot. We did five gallons.
No, that was on the Grenache. So it would take a little bit of if I want to boost the color on another wine, I'll take the skins after the fermentation is done on the Ruby Cabernet, and I'll throw those in the wine.
Okay, I'm kind of hesitant about saying what I'm about to say because we know everybody's taste buds are different, but I don't know why I'm trying to have to taste this again because I don't want to say what I want to say because because I immediately what I taste, and it's crazy that I'm tasting that. I'm kind of rambling at this moment because I'm kind of embarrassed what I want to say.
Say it.
Say it.
Everybody's got different taste buds. So you have 50 people walk in here, try the same wine, and every single one's going to taste something different.
Ruby Cab is such a different wine. It's so different compared. It's like one you can pick up out of a lineup every time.
I can definitely say that yes, I can do that. But so I've drank this now 3 different times. I smelled it 3 different times. I've drank it 3. Let me rinse my mouth out. Let me try it again.
There we go. Then you're gonna get another one.
Get him some crackers.
Oh yeah.
Let me try this again because I swear this is
complexity.
okay. So don't hate me what I'm about to say. Mm-hmm. Like I get broccoli taste.
Yeah, you're getting pyrazines.
That's pyrazines.
So
that's like the very first thing I tasted was like broccoli.
Yeah. So the reason I do that's why I poured you this next one. So the reason I do this wine like this is just for this reason, so people can experience what barrel aging does to a wine. And this is probably one of the most extreme examples is you doing it on, this is why Cab Sauv is, for example, oaked and aged for quite a while. Because of these pyrazines, it needs time with the tannins to soften. This is Ruby Cabernet that was barrel aged for 52 months in French oak.
Oh my God! Just this note on it was day and night difference.
Totally different. So the wine was very similar in the very beginning.
Chemistry was nearly the same. Mm-hmm. We have one of those enofosses. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those, but what usually takes a lab to do 8 hours of work, finding pH, total acidity, the whole 9 yards. You can do a little drop and we get all that information within
2 minutes.
2 minutes. And so we use that a lot, and even
we don't use it for accuracy, it's for analysis. So like, what are the trends going on? Are you going through mallow? Is mallow complete? Are you coming up to completion on mallow?
That so this is a lot softer.
Mm-hmm.
A lot softer. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say the first one was rude, but it was more pungent and more strong when in the smell and the taste. But this one right here is just so much softer. It's like
some people get broccoli, and then some people get like a bell pepper. So like that bell pepper pyrazines, that's what you're gonna get, and it gives that bite.
Big difference, huh?
That is a huge difference.
That's barrel aging.
Yeah.
That was how many?
52 months. So that's a 2017 vintage.
We do quite a bit of extended barrel aging.
I don't know which one I like the best. I like them both.
They're just very different.
Yeah.
I get a lot of people that say the same thing. They're like, they're just so different.
Yeah.
I like them both. This one, the first one, the 2001, the 21 vintage is like, it's just in your face. Very, it's unforgettable. Mm-hmm. Like literally, it's the one wine that you could put in front of me, and every time I could pick it out. As Ruby Cab.
I've yet to try somebody else's Ruby Cab, but I'm excited to do it one of these
You're the
days.
first one I've heard of Ruby Cab.
Nice.
Who else has got Ruby Cab?
No clue. We're trying to figure that out.
There are some others in the state. I actually think Hack Winery maybe. Someone had told me Hack Winery had a Ruby Cab. I don't know.
If anybody's listening and has Ruby Cab,
Please call. Yes.
And are making wine.
But it actually grows very well in Texas. I mean, the pH will be higher on it, but you have to be. It has the structure and tannins and color to handle the higher pH.
So, for our listeners that you can't see what I'm doing, on my left hand here, I have the non-barrel version, and smelling it, you can definitely smell the aromas real heavily. Again, it smells. At first, it smelled like a lot of cracked pepper, but now that I've smelled it a couple more times, I definitely get that whole like bell peppery broccoli smell out of it, and definitely get that taste now. Power suggestion is amazing.
Yeah.
But I mean, like literally when I first drank it, I thought of broccoli right away. I mean, that was the first thing I think of. And then the barrel aged one, it's not as powerful on the nose as the unbarreled one. But it's more softer on the nose, and it's much softer on the palate as well. And let me retaste this other one again.
But what you're experiencing is exactly why I do this. I do this every year. I do the 21 vintage that's aged very quick in a neutral barrel, and then I do one that's aged for a long time.
So you're 52 months.
52 months.
So it reminds me of plums growing up as a kid. But my grandmother always had 2 plums that she would harvest every year. She always harvested a early plum and a late plum. She would harvest some plums off the tree early and get that really tardiness of the plums. And then she would wait till later in the season and get these sweet plums, because by that time they'd get an age a little bit more on there. And I definitely get a lot of that. I love that taste because it takes me back to childhood. Mm-hmm. I get a lot of that.
Wine has a lot to do with stories. I love stories. I like the stories that are behind a wine can make a wine way better.
Oh yeah.
And whenever to come to, like, most of the wineries that you're going to be coming to in Mason, you're going to be talking to those people that have those stories that are able to tell you about those things.
Yeah.
And definitely for us, for one, I mean, if you're going to come up here and do a tasting, you're going to be talking to me or him, and we'll be able to tell you those stories. Tell you how those wines are made.
I'm just going to say this. I really don't want to pour all this out.
We got a couple more.
I mean, I know y'all sitting there looking at the bottles that you got over on the table, and I'm like, but I don't want to.
It's all right. You just blend it, and we won't talk about it.
You know, I thought about pouring, the 52 and your young one all together to see what it came out,
Yeah,
that's what blending's all about.
Go for it.
Oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to taste it, let y'all have it, and then we're going to pour it out.
There we go.
Have y'all even done that yet?
No.
I don't do much blending, period. The only time I blend is when I didn't have enough to fill a barrel. So that's usually when you see a blend come out. For me, would be I just didn't have enough to fill a barrel, and that's why I created the blend.
We have one
I like because we grow the fruit and I have control over the chemistry and stuff. I really have the full control over the quality of it.
You definitely need to try that.
The blend of the two.
Oh yeah, that blend of the two. Yeah, you definitely need to give that a whirl. You may just
non-vintage
got a
Ruby
new bottle right there.
So this next one I'll let you try. This is.
Hey, now you have to buy both. So you got to buy the 21 and the 17.
No. What you do now is you open up a couple cases, blend them together, put them out on the shelf. There you go.
There you go. Then you can put a vintage on it. I don't know if you noticed, but you being in the IT, you can kind of see where we get the labels from. But if you look really closely on the bottom of our labels, you can see that every single one, that's our lock codes that we have from our Innovent system. So we don't use names. We just put the lock codes directly from what we have in our system right onto the label. So that's on the back. You have a code that tells you what everything means. So B for barrel. If it's in steel, it's going to have an S, obviously. And then vintage.
Then you got your vineyard location. The block in the vineyard is highlighted on there as well.
That's pretty smart. I mean, I would have never thought, if I looked at the front of the bottle, I would have never thought of that until I looked at the back and then saw it back there.
Well, and as people get to know our wines, they know they can look at the front and go, "Oh, this is a barrel aged 2017." From we have state.
Now we have almost 40 wines that we only.
And again, most of these are 12 cases. That's 12 cases, 24 cases. Excuse 24 me.
Cases. But what was I saying?
So that's the 2017 Touriga that was barrel aged for 52 months.
So sadly, you didn't have the 16 next to the 17. But if you remember what that 16 tasted like, that's just that 1 year older vintage. We love trying to show our terroir.
So
the reason you might be wondering why I aged for so long, and the reason is because I had read an article years ago that said, this winemaker said most winemakers don't have the patience, but something magical happens in the barrel at 6 years. And I had to find out what that was. And so the very first wine I actually did that on was Sangiovese, and it's the only non-estate grown wine that I've ever made. But it came out of a trade with Chris Brindrett.
So 2 questions for you. One, where do you store all your wines at in here?
They're in the back.
Okay. Second off, I think somebody's in your truck.
In my truck?
I was being facetious there because I was going to run into the storage room right quick.
It might have been. It might have been.
There's nobody in it. I'm just
it might have been a car.
I was just distracting y'all, so I was going to go into your room.
Okay.
The fact that y'all both said and actually looked over there, I was like, man, I had enough time. I could have gone in there and got some.
Yeah, we would have walked out there.
That Touriga, and you said this is this
2017. That was 52 months in barrel. So just over 4 years in barrel.
That is absolutely amazing. And I one of the things that as a winemaker or a future winemaker, we all want to hurry and get our wines out there because we want people to taste it. But we have to learn one thing, and you and I both being in IT, it's something we have to learn is patience.
Well, I'll tell you what makes it easy. If you have a vineyard, the patience to let the wines do their thing is 100 times easier when you have a vineyard. And that I will tell you for sure, I could not do what I do with the aging on our wines if I did not have the vineyard, because just like I would be sitting here every day wanting to stick my nose in those barrels and open them. And it allows me to walk away. I don't top. So after mallow's done, we bang the bung in. They don't get opened again.
So you allow the oxygen to flow in.
Well, no, I don't want the oxygen to flow in. So so by sealing it like that, you create
Basically,
it's a vacuum, right?
okay.
You got a vacuum on the barrel. So if you go look at some of our barrels in there, the ends are concave. They're sucking in because there's such a vacuum on the barrel. So we lose about 8 bottles per year. So if you can imagine, 8 bottles per barrel disappearing every year without being opened, there's quite a vacuum on these barrels.
Gotcha.
So by the time you go open them, if I do open them to check them, at that point, I will either top them or we'll bottle them.
Gotcha.
We have no, because we just bottled those. But we had a 17 Merlot last year.
It was the 19 Merlot.
19 Merlot, but I was talking about we had a couple of 17s and 18s that we haven't opened up since then. And they've been in there. We haven't touched them, and we haven't even looked inside of them until we bottled them that year, which was last year. So they were untouched for 5 years straight, 4 years straight.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think I opened them once at year 2 and thought,
You know what I mean?
I thought these wines would never come to fruition. I thought for sure I would distill them or something. And then they changed drastically over the next 2 years.
It
Interesting.
became phenomenal.
And that's what I keep seeing over and over again. I keep seeing these wines and one of the things I would say that's different about us is that you'll never buy a wine from me and me go, oh, put that down for 3 years. No, when you buy the wines from us, they're ready.
Right.
Like they've been aged. You don't have to age the wine. And Americans are impatient. Like they want to buy the wine and drink the wine, right? And I don't want to buy the wine, pay you $65, $85 for this wine, and then have to sit on it for 3 years because you told me that's when it'll be good.
Right.
And I've done all that aging for you.
Right. And I'm notorious for doing that right now myself. I've got several bottles that are, I think the oldest one I've got in my wine refrigerator now is 16.
Okay.
and then I've got, 16, 17, 18, all the way up to 2020s. And so some of those I'm like, okay, I'm kind of curious how this is going to taste now that they've been sitting in the bottles for a while.
It's interesting. The oldest wine I've released is 2017. Besides the 21 at the top, but everything else is, all my reds are 17. I haven't released anything else.
Interesting.
Everything else is in barrel or bottled and bottle aging.
We have a 17 Merlot that's very, very nice.
Well,
and I would like to release it, but we have quite a bit of 15 Merlot that we still got to push out before we try to start selling
But
something.
it's ageable. It'll last a long time. I mean, I'm not gentle on. So my winemaking style is not gentle at all. Because I know that I'm going to be aging these wines for a very long time. I press hard. I punch down hard. I try to extract as much tannin and structure out of the wine as possible. My wines are not drinkable in the first couple of years.
Okay.
Like they're super tannic, over the top. Like take that Ruby Cab, and add a little bit to it. They're really over the top tannins and the flavor. They're very drying to the palate because of that. But I do that because tannin protects wine just like sulfites.
Right.
And knowing that I'm going to age like I'm aging, because we started making the first wines in 2015. We didn't open the tasting room until 2021. And the whole purpose of that was to build up an inventory of aged wines. And now I can do that.
Yeah, I think that's some of the also impatientness of people who are trying to open a winery up. Is they want the wine now, but they're not willing to wait that long. So they go ahead and open a tasting room up and get some wines that may need a little bit more bottle time or even barrel time.
Yeah.
And then they open it up and it's just not ready yet.
I knew that with our model of being small, that I had to do something that was going to really set us apart from the rest. Where you want to do the end, that one. So, and releasing all aged, like everything on our list, with the exception of the 21, meets the Spanish rules for Grand Reserva.
Really interesting.
Yeah. So even after I bottle, I still don't release it for another 12 months. And that's to make sure that nothing is corked or that there were no problems during the bottling process. So I'll wait an additional 12 months after the bottling process. So you won't see a wine from like this vintage for at least 6 years, 5 to 6 years.
I'm a farmer, not a wine pourer, so I spill a little bit.
So this one is the one that you were talking about earlier when you saw it on there. So this is the MTR. It's Merlot, Touriga, and Ruby Cabernet. Oh my God. So
okay,
can you guess how long that was in barrel?
76 months.
Yes.
I'm not looking at the menu at all.
So that was 7 years in barrel.
So first off, if you can, the best way I can say it, it's a beautiful smell. I mean, that's just all I want to say. I haven't even looked at the rest of this yet.
I still have the Ruby Cab.
I just poured it. That was the NTR. I just poured it.
Did you actually try this
No, I didn't.
mix of the Touriga that we just did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I actually learned something new the other day about putting a light up against your wine, and that tells you the clarity of it and how clear it is. Oh man!
Can't see the light.
Yeah,
Unfiltered.
that's really nice.
So that's equal parts Merlot, Touriga, Ruby Cab. It was one of the first wines that I made. I did 10 barrels of it. I bottled the first 3 barrels at 7 years.
Oh, you got excited about something.
Gotta get the fun snacks.
We bottled the second bottling of it a couple months ago at 8.5 years. So 100 months in barrel. And I still have 5 more barrels. I still have 5 more barrels of this that haven't been bottled yet. So I'm going to do 3 more barrels this year. That will be 9 years in barrel, and 2 more. That'll be 10 years. So you'll get to see one vintage at 7, 8, 9, and 10 years in barrel.
So if Alfonso was here, he would actually use some abrasive words, he would say.
Yeah, probably.
So I'm not going to use those, but I'm going to say, holy crap, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Now, first off, the smell on it is if I can describe it, the best way I can describe it actually is very beautiful. I don't know any other word to actually say. Just smelling it, it's very beautiful. It's very calming.
It surprises everybody,
Especially when you say Mourvedre.
it's definitely
Merlot.
Merlot.
Oh, sorry, Merlot. Sorry.
Yeah. So it surprises especially enologists who taste it because they go 7 years in barrel. This should be completely falling apart. And it doesn't, it's not. It's very fruit forward still. It's got, I mean, I can take you right in there right now and we can taste right out of one of the barrels. You'll see.
It'd be
It
108 month by now, I think.
If I decide to do that, you will not hear me complain one bit.
We can.
But it's quite amazing. So yes, things like VA have gone up. The VA on this one's like 0.85. The VA on the next one that I bottled was like 0.89. So VA is climbing a little bit, but that's for not sulfur. Hadn't been added to the thing in 3 years, probably. I think the last time I added sulfur was 5 grams per liter back in 2017. It's written on the barrel.
It's only like 30 parts per million. A lot of people that, you get these young wines that get released, and sometimes they're forced to release them because they hit their maximum on the sulfites. Because they're going in there every single month testing, and every single time you open a bottle, you gotta either top off that wine or not a bottle, barrel. But every single time you go in, you have to either top it off or you have to add sulfites. And a lot of the times, those people don't have wine to be able to just keep on topping it off, so they go ahead and put some sulfites in there, and that's when they hit that maximum limit. And then,
I mean, the other thing is adding sulfites to a wine with a really high pH is kind of ridiculous.
Right.
And most of our wines have pHs of 3.8, 3.9. Unless you're going to add sulfites at the recommended rate, it's a ridiculous amount of sulfites.
Right.
And so really, you're going to have to release the wine very quick. So you can't age wine for a very long time and constantly be adding sulfites to it. You go past the legal limit very quick. So that's another reason I don't do it.
I used to make barbecue sauce years ago, and I made it with some cherries, but these were Bing cherries. Not dark cherries, but Bing cherries. And I couldn't figure out the taste that I'm getting off of this. And I remember making that barbecue sauce and using Bing cherries in it. And that's what I'm tasting in this.
Nice.
If you've ever eaten Bing cherries, they're not candied. You're not, none of that. They're darker cherries than the dark cherries.
They're like a fig of cherries.
Yeah. This is what I'm tasting off of this. And I haven't eaten a Bing cherry in years.
Yeah, it's interesting. So this blend came out of, so it's, of course, the first blend I ever made, but it started off as Merlot, Ruby Cab, Touriga, separate. And the Ruby Cab was very green. So you think that 21 is green? That was before I figured out how to grow Ruby Cab. And I was trying to grow it at very low tonnage.
Phenomenal.
Okay, I'm going to ask this serious question here. What kind of cracker y'all putting in all this? Okay.
None. Love.
Because I'm sitting here trying to figure out how am I supposed to pay for all this wine here, and see if I can get some of this whatever it is you gave me over here.
Those cocoa covered almonds.
No, they're not. Those are crack covered almonds.
Got a little bit of white powder there, sugar. I don't know what that is.
I mean, holy cow! I've drank a lot of wine this week, and I'm glad y'all were my last one this week, because there's a lot of good stuff here. And y'all are presenting me a lot of flavors that I've never tasted before. And I really enjoy that. And I think the oldest one I've ever drank barrel-wise is 18 months. And I'm drinking some, obviously, 76-year-old wine.
76 months.
76 months. Sorry, guys.
76-year-old wine would be awesome.
If you want to taste 100 month, that's the one we just bottled. I haven't released it yet, but it is in there. We can try that. I'll let you try
make
it.
everybody jealous. But I mean, oh, holy.
So this is the Sangiovese. This gets compared to, so we don't do tastings on this anymore. So that this wine, there's only a case of it left. My customers will be happy to know that I'm working out another trade with Chris Brenderet this year. So I'm going to do another Sangiovese.
Yeah, if you ever seen Lion King, you know when he gets that little mark across his forehead? Yeah, you can do that easily with this stuff.
It's the sediment
So
on the
what, if you'll hold him up,
Yeah.
I'll do the mark. Or actually, I'll hold him up and you do the mark.
You got a second glass? Is this yours too?
Have you ever tried it? Very, very fruity.
I couldn't let that MTR go to waste. I'm sorry. I just couldn't pour that one out.
That MTR is awesome, and I don't think he finished talking about it, but it's what we would call our Chateau blend, because it's 3 of our oldest blocks on the vineyard that were back in 2020 or
So
2020.
this particular wine, we only have one case of it left. It's priced at there's $500 about $529 a bottle now.
Yeah, I saw that. I thought it was calories also, because I saw the 225 and the 529. I thought that was just calories.
It's a wine that won't exist again. Yeah, it came from Mandola Vineyard. Bill Blackman grew it. It was aged 65 months in barrel. It's a Brunello style
You're not
Sangiovese.
gonna like that. I'm gonna need that glass. You're not gonna like that. I'm gonna need that glass.
Gotta make sure it's not poisonous, you know? It's like
So that was 65 months in barrel, and this was the very first wine that I barrel aged for a long time. And the story behind it is when in 2015 I told Chris Brenderet that I wasn't selling many fruit because I was going to make my very first wines and I was going to take all the fruit. But at the same time, I was also going to buy my first barrels, and I had never tasted the difference between French, American, Hungarian, and was curious about what the different oaks tasted like. So I called up Chris and I asked him, I said, would you mind taking me through some of your barrels? And he said, sure, come on down. Chris will deny this story, but like after about the 9th barrel, I knew Chris was kind of up to something. And he walks up to a barrel of Sangiovese and he goes, do you like Sangiovese? And I was like, well, my wife loves Sangiovese. And as soon as I said that, it wasn't a few seconds later, Chris looks at me and goes, well, how about we trade 1 ton of Sangio for 1 ton of Touriga? And so that's how that came to be. So that day I left, and because I had always wanted to experiment with the 6 years in barrel, I said, well, this is not my fruit. This is the one I'm going to experiment with. And it didn't make it to 6 years because Chris came up here at 65 months, and he walked up here and I go, you know that Sangiovese from back in 2015? I said, I still got it. It's in barrel. You want to try it? He and I went in there and tried it. We walked out. He goes, that's pretty good. And I bottled it that night.
So first off, I want to appreciate y'all sharing this with me. I mean, I've drank a lot of wine in Texas in the last 5 years. Learning to drink wine, becoming a winemaker. I've drank a lot of good wine out there. And I think the most expensive bottle I have in my collection right now is an $80 bottle from Kiefer Salt. The fact that you had opened up a bottle of this, that you are very low in supply on this, to allow me to taste this, means a lot to me.
Well, I think it's important to show you that I think Texas, because I've heard recently some comments about Texas not being able to age. Texas can age wines.
Oh, this right here, if you put this in front of any California Sanjo, I guarantee you, if you did a blind, they'll pick this one over any other one in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
and it doesn't even smell like a Sanjo. That's what's crazy about it, is it doesn't smell like a Sanjo.
So if you go grab a Brunello, grab a Brunello and open it next to one of these. I have a hard time if you blind taste me on a Brunello next to one of these. It's so hard to tell the difference.
Yeah,
it's crazy. I mean, it's got the brown oxidized character of it on the nose. It's got that just old wine smell.
I think it gives it character. Like, it has a little bit more wisdom in it.
I'll make you a deal. I'll bring you a bottle of my Tempranillo for one of these bottles. my $10 bottle of Tempranillo that I made.
I'll let you have the rest of this one since we opened it.
Yeah. Go ahead and take this one.
Oh my God. I mean, seriously. I mean, I've heard a lot of good things about y'all, but I didn't hear about this part. And this is amazing. Holy cow.
Yeah, most of our customers come from word of mouth. I mean, probably 80% of our customer base is out of Houston.
Yeah, we have this one guy that comes in on his plane, and he comes in and he just like, give me the MTR. You know I want it.
Yeah.
Come in, buy a case.
But my slogan's been wine made for the connoisseur. And that's kind of what we've been doing, is trying to stick to these really high-end wines that they do kind of blow your mind. You know, when you taste them and you go, how does this holding together after that long a barrel? And I wanted to show people like that. After I experienced it once, and then I experienced it twice, and then the third time, I was like, these wines can age. Like, Texas can age wines. It's not just Robert Clay. I'd like to say it's just Robert Clay. It's not. Like, there's a lot of things that they say you can't do in Texas, like, oh, you can't leaf pull, you burn the hell out of your fruit. That's not true.
Right.
You leaf pull early.
Mm-hmm.
You leaf pull early. It's just like you. If you sit inside all day long and then go out in the sun for the first time, you're going to fry. Well, the grape's going to do the same thing. You know, pull the leaves early. They're not going to fry. I've pulled both sides of the leaves on my Chardonnay before. They just got real toasty brown, but nothing burned. You know, where you're getting
it just gives it so much more color and so much more characters. It builds that skin to just get tough.
The anthocyanins, the flavonoids, all of those things that you talk about from the chemistry perspective, they're elevated when you do that kind of stuff. And I think Texas can definitely do it. It's you got to do it at the right time.
I think a lot of times, a lot of people say they can't do it, or they say Texas can't do it, is because we are impatient people.
Or they've been told you can't do it.
And when a lot of times when people say you can't do something, they get that mindset that says, oh, I can't do it. But y'all have, hold my beer, watch me, I'm going to do this.
Exactly.
Well,
actually, let me rephrase that. Hold my wine, I'll show you.
I tend to get a lot of flack for that, because I will ask people something for their opinion, but I'll ask multiple people the same question, and then I kind of take a little bit of what each person said, and then I may try what they say to do, or I may try something totally different. But like, leaf pulling is one. Not putting sulfites in a wine that's got a 4.2 pH is another one, or It's just, you can do these kind of things. I've learned a lot from Rob Parr. You know, he did a lot of reading on high pH winemaking, and, you know, we keep our cellar temperatures a little bit higher because of that. You know, most people would keep their cellar temperatures lower than we do. We keep them between 60, 65, usually it's 65. And I don't mind letting the temperature of the cellar get up into the 70s during harvest. It lets some of those things happen in the barrel. I'd rather them happen in the barrel and be surprised there than in the bottle, because I can always take what's in barrel and I can distill it. You know, I made a brand. I can't call it a port, you know, but it's a port style wine off the first Triga in the state, and I made it back in 2020. It's still in barrel. I haven't bottled it yet, but it's 100% estate, including the brandy. So I started the wine. Started back in 2017 doing a late harvest Viognier that I harvested. It was about 28, 29 bricks. Fermented that using a champagne yeast.
Okay.
And then I took it and distilled it, and I barrel aged it in an old Madeira barrel for 3 years. And that's what I used to fortify my estate port style wine.
Interesting.
And the Touriga that we used in it was harvested in November, which typically would get harvested the first week in August. So if you can imagine how raisined up it was by that point. And that's what we made the Touriga from.
You know,
the port.
I'm going to say this. Excuse me. Y'all have something amazing going on here. And I love that you waited so many years before opening your tasting room. I'm actually kind of emotional right now because the fact that you allow and shared with me your most expensive bottles. Because, you know, most wineries wouldn't just say, I'm going to open this and let you taste this. You know, they're not going to do that. And the fact that y'all did that to show me what aging does and to show that Texas can do this, you just got to want to do it.
You got to have patience.
Yeah.
Well, you got to keep your day job. I mean, I couldn't do this if I didn't keep my day job, to be honest. I mean, and Chris Brendrett calls me crazy all the time for it. And he's like, well, why are you doing this? And I enjoy like spending time with him in the vineyard. Mm-hmm. I would much rather do my IT job some, get to spend time with him in the vineyard, with my grandson sitting on my lap in the vineyard, and then come in here and he and I, during harvest, it's freaking hard. It's the two of us. He and I last year harvested all the Chardonnay ourselves. You know, we bring it in. Took us 3 days to do it. But then we came in here and we use a basket press, a half-ton basket press. And we will press the Chardonnay over a 3 to 4 day period.
So a basket press, not a bladder press.
Basket press. So it uses hydraulics, but we'll set it at 1 bar and we'll let it press like overnight. So I won't go higher than 1 bar, put it in there, and we'll let it press that whole thing overnight. We'll come in, we'll put more in, and we do it very slowly. So it takes us hours to do our presses.
Wow.
But by not going over 1 bar, I mean, so our Chardonnays, for example, I took every vintage of Chardonnay that I've made. Most people don't realize there's like 10 categories for Chardonnay in the San Francisco Chronicle. This is based on price category. I took every vintage that I've ever made, filtered and unfiltered, put them in the 23 competition in the highest price category, and we took 10% of the medals. They were silver. I didn't expect to get gold going up against more buttery style, Chardonnays, but to have every vintage in the highest price category, take a silver in that category, I think says a lot for what Texas is capable of.
Most definitely. I mean, Texas is capable of making good wines.
And I'm not a winemaker.
No, yeah, you are. Don't say you're not.
No, but I'm not a trained winemaker. It goes to prove my point even more, right? Like I'm not in there making wine.
We're babysitting.
Right? I'm babysitting wine. I understand the chemistry enough to know, like, will I add acid sometimes? Yes, I will add acid sometimes. Do I do it all the time? Absolutely not. The 21 Chardonnay had no acid addition in it.
It was actually, I can't believe the chemistry on it. Whenever after 2 it was a year and a half, and it was a year and a half in barrel, and it came back, and all 3 barrels were the exact same chemistry. VA was 0.1.
0.1.
It was like 0.12,
And no topping, no nothing.
there's probably 4 inches of air at the top of those barrels, but since you got that vacuum that we were talking about earlier, it's gonna stay perfect.
Well, you know what? Now that y'all saying that, I don't feel so bad about my wine because I've got gap between the hole and the wine.
Just don't open the thing.
And I've pulled out a couple times just to do some sample testing to make sure everything's fine, but I have not opened it at all outside of that. Mm-hmm. I've literally gone what you said, put it in there, forget about it.
Yeah. So after mallow, so I will open it until mallow. Once mallow is complete, the bung goes in and it doesn't get open again. That's kind of the rule of thumb around here is we just don't open it, keep busy in the vineyard.
Don't open it and don't move it.
But if we do open it, then we have to do something. So at that point, topping would be something we would look at, or it's either that or we bottle it.
So I don't feel so bad about mine now because I haven't moved it and I haven't opened it. I literally forgot about it. And it's been sitting in the barrel since November.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch VA trends on it in the beginning and VA really wasn't doing anything, you should be fine. That's one of the things I will look at on it. We just try and make sure the wine is stable going in. And we always try and go into barrel before fermentations are completely done. So there's still mallow, there's still some CO2 in solution, things to push dissolved oxygen out, right? And that's why we will do that monitoring. But as soon as that mallow is complete, that bung gets closed and doesn't get open.
It's really fun too because then you got a present after 3 years. You're like, oh, I forgot we made this or this Merlot, and we're like, oh wait, we did do that.
Well, did Alphonse tell you his story about the barrel? There's a barrel of wine that he had found. I think it was. I don't want to misquote it, but I think it was almost 8 years or something. It was yeah. I don't know. He probably doesn't have any more of it left. Well, but it was a wine that got left over at, I think it was over at Fall Creek where he was making wine, and I got lost in the mix, and they found it, and it had been some ridiculous amount of time in barrel. But he bottled it, and it's probably all sold. This was probably 4 years ago.
Yeah, that's probably gone by now.
Yeah.
I mean, he told us about the aging of the whiskey barrel. Mm-hmm. That one of his members actually told me, "Hey, you thought about doing this?" And yeah, he talked about that, but not about that one at all.
Yeah, it was just a lost barrel.
Huh. Those are always the fun barrels.
The alcohol on it was, if I can remember, I think it was 15 or higher. It was very high. Because alcohol tends to go up over time because depending on the humidity, if it's below 70%, water will evaporate. If it's above, you'll lose alcohol.
Right.
So your alcohol percentage will slowly go up over time. I mean, you look at all those black barrels that you see out there are full of Madeira.
Okay.
They've been sitting there for almost 10 years now.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
When we bottled what?
We bottled one barrel so far.
And that was 5 years ago, 4 years ago?
Mm-hmm. And we've lost 190 gallons due to evaporation.
In 3 years. So apply that over the next 10 years that they've been out there.
Well, I could understand why winemakers want to hurry and bottle their stuff because, I mean, that's losing 100
gallons.
Yeah. That's a lot of money being lost there.
But you have to adjust the bottle price.
Right.
So the bottle price of those that were in there for 5 years, they're $95 a bottle. It sells like hotcakes, and the stuff that's in there, I don't know what the price will be, but it'll have to be more, of course.
You're getting way more alcohol. So that's at 18%, and those are probably around 21, 22%.
When are you going to plan on bottle those?
When the first one finishes selling, which we're almost out of.
We have 46 bottles
left.
When you sell that, let me know.
Okay.
I'm going to come over here and I want to taste it with y'all.
Try it right now.
Well, I think the plan is we're going to be bringing one of those probably in here and one of my port style wines in here. And I think we're just going to do like bottles straight from the barrel and label.
Per order?
For people.
Whenever somebody wants one.
That would be fun to do.
Yeah.
That would definitely be fun to do. Guys, it has definitely been an experience that I have not experienced since I've been here. I've got to talk to a lot of great people, but for y'all to open up what you did and shared it with me and to explain that, hey, Texas can do all this, that is absolutely amazing. And that Sanjo, oh my gosh, I'm going to continue talking about that one for years to come. Okay.
Well, our customers are going to be excited because that was one of the wines that would never happen again. And I was at the Texas wine auction this year, and I looked at Chris and I said, you want to do that trade again? No, it's not. It's going to come off of uplift, so it'll be a 1 ton trade uplift. But it'll probably be for my cab. Is what it sounded like. We're going to do a trade cab for the Sanjo from uplift.
Interesting. So just I've never hit this microphone in a year and a half. I've been doing this podcast. I've hit this microphone more times with y'all than I've ever done this. So just to tell you a little story about my caps, my Tempranillo that I've got at the house. So there's one of my favorite distilleries in Fort Worth. He makes everything in his distillery is all Texas made. And he makes a old fashioned. He puts it in a 5-gallon barrel and he ages it in the barrel. And then when he's ready to serve it, he puts the barrel out there. It's got a little spigot on the front. He pulls the cork out of the bung. He puts a bottle of bourbon on top of it and lets it sit there. So when he opens the spigot, you get a fresh old fashioned every time.
Oh, wow.
And I got one of those 5-gallon barrels and I put my Tempranillo into it. And my Tempranillo has been sitting in that barrel since November.
Wow.
And it smells very much like a port, but it has every body, every taste, every characteristics of a Tempranillo.
That's so much fun.
Oh, it's going to be a blast. Now, what you don't know is, and I've talked about this on many episodes, is when I was actually preparing it, checking my levels, make sure everything's fine. The pH on it was extremely high. It was like a 4.75. And I didn't want it that high. I wanted it like between a 3.75 or a 4. So I was told by multiple people, a lot of my mentors, that just add a little bit of tartaric acid to it to get it to come down, just step it. So, my hard-headedness.
You were at 4.7?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It was pretty high for Tempranillo.
Yeah.
I felt anyway.
That's really high.
But it came from up around the Red River area. So I went in there, instead of stepping it down, I just measured everything that I wanted out. And I was like, well, I'll just split this up. Well, then after I get going and stuff, I forgot that I was going to do that. And I just dumped it all in there. I let it sit there for about a week and I tested it again, and it was a 3.2. And it was a big old acid bomb. Like you remember eating those Sour Patch Kids, the old warheads back in the day.
Yeah.
And they hit you right here in the back of the throat. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh my gosh, I literally thought I ruined it. Well, I got to talking to like Chris Dodson and Grayson Davies about how to fix it. And they told me how to fix it. And so I added some potassium
sorbate.
Yes, to it. And it grabbed hold, it bonded hold of that acid, and it actually brought it up to about, the last time I checked, it was at 3.75. And it's been holding strong right there. I don't touch it. I don't turn it. I don't do anything to it. And it tastes amazing. So when I go back home after this week, next Saturday, I'm going out to test it, make sure everything's good on it. And if it's good, I'm bottling it. And
Nice.
I'm kind of waiting for it. And I think it needs probably about 2 or 3 months in a bottle. And it'll be the most amazing bottle of Tempranillo you'll ever have.
Nice.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
You try that. We're trying to make a Tempranillo hopefully sometime soon.
Well,
we have Tempranillo,
I think
we've never made it.
so. What you talk about, the pH, is something on Tempranillo I've seen and heard a lot of out of Texas. Is that you'll pick it even at like, say 3.7, you'll end up well over 4, and it has to do with potassium, that causes that.
Right.
But there's definitely, that's something I see consistently. I haven't solved it myself. He and I are playing with different things in the vineyard to see what things we can do as far as manipulation with how many clusters we carry. We've moved the whole vineyard over to cane pruning. And so it'll be
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting. It's been like a 3-year process for he and I to do that, because we're taking an old vineyard and converting it from spur prune to cane pruned. And this year, almost the whole Tempranillo got converted. So it'll be interesting to see what the chemistry looks like this year? Because we only left 10 buds per cane.
No, well,
We took it down to 8
originally, and then I went back through.
Took it down to 8.
Back down to 8.
So
Interesting.
You know,
Okay.
a much smaller crop load.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see that. I mean, this whole year has been interesting looking at the vines as a whole, because we've got most of the vineyard converted to cane prune, and we're seeing much smaller cluster sizes, which is great from a winemaking perspective.
Right.
It's much smaller berries. Definitely lower. I mean, we're probably averaging less than 2 tons to the acre.
Right.
But again, doing estate stuff, I don't really care.
Right.
You know, it's more about quality.
Well, you know, I've said this a while ago. I'm humble to what y'all offered up here, and I'm humble to what y'all been doing out here, because I've heard a lot of good stories from y'all, but actually hearing it from y'all and telling us how y'all doing stuff and how you're making your wines, how you're doing your vineyard and stuff. A lot of people are not doing that. A lot of people are doing traditional ways of doing their vineyards and how they're pruning their vines and how they're doing their clusters. Y'all are just like going off left field and like, I'm going to do my own thing. And y'all are producing some really good wine here.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think some people say I'm crazy. I've never been to any other growing region. I've been to the Finger Lakes, but I've never been to Napa. I've never been to Napa. I've never been over to Spain.
Right.
But I'd done that on purpose to this point, because I feel like I felt like I needed to learn how to do it myself in Texas, and how I felt like it worked here, versus go learn some way that they did it over in California, then come try and apply that here, because it probably wouldn't work.
Right.
And
I'm the same way. I have not been to California. I haven't been any other place other than Texas when it comes to winemaking. And so I'm actually going off of what we do here in Texas. I frankly, I don't care what they do in California or Washington, or Oregon, wherever, because their terroir is different than ours. And I want to learn what we do here. This is where I'm at. This is where I'm going to grow my vines. And this is where I'm going to make my wine.
I'll tell you, if you do another Tempranillo, try to do a rosé. So Ricky from Alta Marfa did a rosé off of ours, which was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like phenomenal. It was excellent.
Really, really good.
So Chris,
made a red as well.
He's done both. He's done both a red and a rosé off of ours. But you'll have to talk. Have you ever interviewed Ricky?
No.
You have to interview Ricky. He's done some really cool stuff with some of our fruit, and I was blown away by one of the Tempranillos he did one time, because I was like, I was never really impressed with the Tempranillo, because the chemistry would always come up with such a high pH.
right.
Now the Ruby Cab will do the same thing, but the Ruby Cab's got huge color. It's got big tannin structure. So does Tempranillo, but not enough to handle 4.5 pH.
Right.
But the Tempranillo rosé he made was phenomenal.
And I wish I could get it. Chris over at Eden Hill, he makes a rosé Tempranillo, and he's done it now 2 years, and he's won awards for both of them. And when you look at it, it has this rose gold color that when you just look at it, it just makes you want to smile. You don't want to drink it yet. You just want to look at it and smile.
You know what? Now that we're talking about all this, we should have opened the Touriga rosé.
I know.
So I did a Vin Gris style rosé from Touriga, but it's using 40% of the juice.
Okay.
So I bled off. Normally you do 10%.
Right.
So it's 40% of the juice. And I did it because I wanted a really concentrated Touriga red wine that year. And so but it's been an awesome, everyone loves it. It's
a nice peachy.
It's
right
peach color.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is a beautiful color.
I like the peach colored rosés. Okay. I mean, that's Vin Gris style.
Yeah.
And then you got the Pet Nat and the Barbaros. So those are two on the right of those rosés. You got a Pet Nat on the right, and you got the traditional just regular rosé in the middle. And those are both the exact same wines, just fermented differently. So one was fermented inside the bottle, and the other was fermented, obviously, traditional style. But,
well, y'all really have some interesting stuff going on here, and I really enjoy what y'all are doing. So, usually I take a break and we go right, and then we come back and then do education. Well, we're just going to skip right into the education stuff because we've already kind of talked a little bit into it because we want to talk about how to ensure consistency and flavor and quality from one batch to the next. And y'all pretty well talked about it already. I mean,
It's from a vineyard perspective, I think that's key. Like the wine's made literally in the vineyard. And if you have control over the vineyard, that is number one. We get to decide exactly when we're going to harvest, what the chemistry is going to be. We know coming in what it's going to be. That's like, it kind of gives like, if I had to be a winemaker, that would probably just freak me out. Well, like if I had to deal with not the unknowns of like, oh, this fruit's coming in, like, who knows
how much chemistry am I going to have to do on this thing?
We go and we can run fruit every week on our FOSS. So we know exactly what the chemistry is like. And when we do testing, it's not just going to be getting a few berries. We'll do 5-gallon buckets and we'll test we'll go grab quite a bit. So like, we're pretty confident of what our chemistry is going to be when the fruit comes in. And that makes our life a lot easier, but it also makes our life a lot easier that we're not having to do 10,000, gallons.
Well, Dan, you said you're not a winemaker. You're a winemaker. Just own up to it.
Well, I call myself I'm a wine grower. So I would literally like to I tend to refer to myself more as like, it's the vineyard own model out of Europe, right? You're a grower winemaker, grower being the most important piece of it because the winemaking is more of like, I call it wine babysitting because that's really what it boils down to.
98% cleaning. You just become a glorified dishwasher at that point.
Yeah. I mean, pretty much every bit of winemaking is cleaning. Yep. Cleaning, sanitizing. Oh, wait a minute. I got to sanitize one more time.
3 times a time. Every single time.
So, with that being said, what do you do for sanitize?
We have a full-on steamer.
So we use steam.
Okay.
We'll typically do, start off with citric acids, sulfur solutions. We'll use potassium. What is it?
K&B.
No, that's why am I having a brain?
Hey, I'm the same way.
Oxidate
OxyClean.
It's not
OxyClean. No, OxyClean. No, man.
Oh, no, wait.
Don't sanitize with OxyClean.
I haven't drank much wine either. It's normally right off the tip. You got to know what I'm talking about.
Sulfur SO2.
No. My gosh.
Podcast
you should know. Okay. Anyways, it'll come to my tongue here in a second.
Well, yeah.
Normally it just flows.
We'll get everything packed up. We'll be down the road. You're like, oh, hey, this is what it is. I know there's so one of the things I like to ask is, and I'm learning from this, is what people sanitize with. And one of the biggest ones I hear now is citric acid, not citrix acid, because I work with this.
So you have to do citric with your sulfur. Right. If you don't do citric acid and sulfur, then the sulfur is not going to work.
Right. Yeah.
And most people don't do, a lot of people don't do that.
A lot of people don't even know it, and that's not even working.
Yeah, you got to get the pH low enough for the sulfur to actually do its job.
Right. And one of the cool things, actually, some of the winemakers that I've worked with said they love citric acid for 2 reasons. One is great for sanitation, and add just a little bit of lemon juice to it, and you got a Sprite.
Right? That's awesome.
I mean, you need the sulfur there from an oxidation perspective,
right?
But like you got to be careful with it. A lot of people, the first time they go add citric acid and then add sulfur, don't realize just how fast that stuff is going to hit your nose, and you can do a lot of damage. So you got to be very careful.
We also do a lot of heat. So we have 2 industrial grade heaters that we can use and get our water temperature all the way up to 185. So we're able to heat everything up, kill all the bacteria. It's really think about bacteria, but bacteria can survive in a lot of things.
Right.
A meteor coming down, going through 2,000, probably even hotter than that, Fahrenheit, going through the atmosphere, and that bacteria is still going to survive.
Right.
Right. So 185 degrees temperature is all that we can do without it.
Well, I don't know if it's going to survive, but I mean, 185 kills most stuff.
Most,
and the steam that we use, The steam works really good. I mean, we use steam on just about everything before. And we try to use gravity every time we can. So like, I will try to bypass anything that has like stainless steel or rubber in it if I possibly can, just because no matter what you do, that stuff's going to end up rubbing off in the wine, and then you're going to have to filter it. So I try to use those as absolute last resort. And so we'll use forklift, we'll lift our tanks, and we'll use gravity to get things into barrel. We always try to go to barrel before fermentation is complete. We don't open the barrels all the time. Those are the kind of things we do from a winemaking perspective.
So you do sort of unconventional, conventional style winemaking.
We do the kind of things you can get away with as a small producer.
Right.
Like I wouldn't dare try the things we do at a bigger winery. Like it's just way too much risk.
Right.
Right. I mean,
because you got too many tonnage there. At that point, you're like
too much tonnage, and you got too many people in the kitchen.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
All it takes is one of them to mess up, and a lot of wine is destroyed.
Yep. Yep. So
Just takes me or him to mess up. I'm getting yelled at. No.
even if it's his fault. Well, guys, I can't appreciate the time that we had to sit here and talk. A lot of people are going to really enjoy this episode. I'm really glad that y'all actually my tail end episode, because we started in Mason and we finished in Mason.
Awesome.
So we went over here to Fly Gap on Tuesday. That was our first episode, and we're going to finish here in Mason. So we want to let people know that Mason is an up and coming wine wine trail.
I've always seen Mason as like, if you compared, they say Fredericksburg's second to Napa.
Right.
And I see Mason as kind of like the next step would be like, you could say, if that was Napa, this would be Sonoma, or even a smaller region.
Or even Rio.
Yeah.
Or El Paso.
Yeah.
So,
but it's, I mean, we're the one area closest to Fredericksburg. We're actually the same. If you're sitting in Fredericksburg, it's about the same distance to go to High as it is to come here. And to come here, there's not a single stoplight.
no, actually there is right now.
Where? Because they're doing the work on that.
There is a single stoplight out there. I mean, like middle of nowhere, there's a stoplight.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really? Seriously?
But I mean,
that's not going to go as long as the I-35 is going on. So
and I think once people,
yeah, we don't mention.
I think once people realize that, because I don't think people realize that today.
Yeah,
it's like, I can drive a single straight shot with not a single stoplight.
Yep.
And I can be in a place where you're dealing with grower winemakers and like actually sitting down with the owners. Like that's huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
People that love and care about their wines, truly. And
Yeah.
You're going to be talking to those people.
Yeah, and like you said, people, you go out to High, you can get that, you can come here. Or if you want to go farther, you go Johnson City, you can get all that. But Mason is an up and coming wine destination now. In fact, I know when I got to look, and you have seven wineries here in this area.
so there's 7, 8. Well, if you look at Vineyards, there's more than that. But you have Sandstone, Parr, Robert Clay, Fly Gap, Murphy Creek, Blackman,
Peters Prairie.
They're
They're not on the square.
What
Yeah,
am I up to? Oh, well, they just moved off the square. But yeah, on the square now, so it's dropped by 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this is a great little place. So, gentlemen, again, it's been an amazing time sitting here chatting with y'all. Real quick, I just want to hit my sponsors, and then we're going to hit some quotes. Okay. So first off, obviously y'all are part of the Texas Wine Lover app. I mean, that's a great little app. In fact, you can find all the wineries here in Mason on that app and make it a quick little trip. You can actually plan out your days off of there. Go to the website, reserve time to sit down and actually talk and drink wine with these guys. Make sure you actually, when you come here to Robert Clay, you spend like half a day here.
Well, we're open. A lot of people don't realize we're open 7 days a week. It's just by appointment only.
Right. Yeah.
You can make an appointment for 2 a.m. and I'll probably show up.
All right. Seriously?
No.
Because I'll do that just to test you.
Do it.
Okay. And then also one of our other sponsors, and this is one of my favorite ones, is Fly with Wine. Have y'all heard about these guys?
No.
So basically, so let's say we go to Europe. Okay, we're going to drink wine over there. We decide we're going to bring wine back. Your choice of bringing it back is UPS, FedEx, or DHL, and you're looking at least 4 weeks to get it. Okay. Well, Fly with Wine, you get a suitcase that's padded on the inside that will hold 3, 6, 9, 12 bottles of wine.
Okay.
You check it in when you go to the airport, and when you land here in DFW airport or in San Antonio or Austin, you get the wine, you get your suitcase right then and there, and you don't have to wait 4 weeks to get your wine. It's right there.
Interesting.
And then you can start drinking it on the way home.
It's kind of like that case over there.
No, it's over here now. It's over there. We have a wine for allocation list.
Okay.
So we're using something similar for wine allocations.
Yeah.
So it's a padded, it's a gun case converted to a wine shipper.
Oh.
Like this.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So we're gonna our allocation list that we're hopefully going to finally start up this year is going to be, we're going to allow like 25 people on it. And the only requirement is going to be to get one of these shippers.
Oh. Wow.
And I've got a GPS unit in there that tracks G-force, the humidity, temperature, emails, and then emails the customer as UPS gets close to their house. So that's,
and so,
so it sounds similar to that.
So you ship that to their house, and then when they get it,
they own it. They own it. So that it's their shipper as being part of the allocation list. And I just let them keep it.
So do you
and
need
then when they want wine, they'll ship it back to me.
Do you need a guinea pig? I mean, I'll definitely test it out for you.
Yeah, sure. We've done a few test runs on it already. It's we've done probably like 4 or 5 test shipments
awesome.
with it. I've had to adapt it a little bit because I stuck my own gel pack in the base of it, but it's worked really well.
That is awesome.
And it's lifetime,
we'll get a picture
lifetime warranty.
That online and stuff like that. That's pretty awesome. Well, so we always finish off these episodes with quotes. And so I thought with this being the final episode of our week here in Fredericksburg, these will be some great quotes to do. So the first one is, if there is a magic wand, if there is a magic wand, I would wave it. It would be that every restaurant in America will start buying from local wineries. I mean, and that's just not Texas, but I mean, we need to support our local wineries, whatever state you're in. I mean, I know we talk about Texas, but we need to support our local wineries. And that's from a gentleman named Doug Frost. And then this one right here is actually a really, really good one. I want people to know that their palate is a snowflake. We all like different things. Why should we all have the same taste in wines? And that's from a psalm by the name of Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean,
it's very true.
It's very true.
I mean, we tell all of our customers that come in, like, what wine would you like? And I always will start, like, every palate's different.
Yeah.
Not only that, depending on the time of the day,
what you just ate.
you brushed your teeth with this morning, it's. I have bad palate days where if I come in and I'll taste some wine and it's not right, like, I'll leave the building because I know, like, I'll end up doing something stupid,
right?
Like, throw out a bunch of, which I've done before. I've thrown out what was probably really good wine all because I had a bad palate day.
I had a lady, I was in the tasting room. She comes in and she goes, I love big, bold red wines. And she goes, I want to drink some of what Texas has. Because she's from Carolina or North Carolina. And I was like, okay, cool. So I pour her, a Merlot. And she drinks it. She goes, this is too sweet. What do you mean it's too sweet? There's like 0.25% residual sugar in this. This is not sweet at all. She goes, oh, it's just too sweet. I'm like, okay. So I pour her a Toronto. Same thing. This is too sweet. And I look at it and I say, okay, well, ma'am, this one right here is 0.02% residual sugar in it. She goes, oh, it's too sweet. So I go through like 5 different reds. She's like, oh, these are way too sweet. And I said, well, what did you have to eat today? Or what did you drink? She goes, oh, like 30 minutes before I came in here, I drank a big pickle juice shot.
Yeah, that'll do it.
That just closed her palate completely out.
Yeah, all she's tasting is fruit.
So what I did is I reached over and got her a winery and handed it to her. And I said, now this might be sweet.
Yeah. Oh, my.
So, gentlemen, I really appreciate y'all's time here. I mean, I really, really thoroughly enjoyed what you're doing here, what you got coming up. Man, I can't, I'm speechless.
Well, thank you for what you do for the Texas industry. It's we could. I mean,
we need more of it.
We more people out there really doing this. It really helps the industry.
I appreciate it. That's what I do it for because I found Texas wines and I'm staying with Texas wines. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, there we go.
Guys, this is Will with We Know Texas Vino. Cheers.